importance of seed dispersal by animals for different plant species around the world, and then different cases of seed dispersal by turtles and tortoises, and why this particular taxa is important as a seed dispersal vector for plants, and then a little bit about the pine rockland ecosystem, its flora, its fauna, and then kind of zooming into Locustberry and its biology, and then finishing the talk with the purpose why you guys are here, which is to talk about seed dispersal of Locustberry by gopher tortoises and box turtles. So to start off, seed dispersal by animals, also known as endozoochory, it's this worldwide phenomenon, and it's beneficial for between 60 to 80% of all plant species, specifically flowering plants. And the reason why is because this mode of seed dispersal helps plants, which, I mean, they don't have feet, so they can't move around. So basically these plants, they benefit from animals who can move around to come in, eat the seeds, and then move them away from the parent plants. And so usually this involves ingesting the seeds and then pooping them out, and poop can sometimes be rich in nutrients. And so that serves as fertilizer for the seeds. And then also it helps the seeds escape predation and wind up in suitable sites for germination that tends to have open canopies, all these other factors. But as with many things in biology, it depends. How effective is a seed disperser? Is it a seed predator? There's all these questions. And so that's why seed dispersal is such a fascinating topic. But one important thing to note is that most research on seed dispersal by animals has been focused on birds and small scatter hoarding mammals. So like squirrels and Central American agoutis. These are species that they've been the focus of seed dispersal research for a very long time. And it hasn't been until the relatively near future, I guess, that seed dispersal by other species of animals has been more strongly considered, specifically seed dispersal by reptiles and turtles and tortoises. And so currently seed dispersal by turtles, and more specifically tortoises, it's been a hot topic in seed dispersal world. Some of the earliest research focusing on this particular interaction between fruit producing plants and turtles and tortoises was back in the 1960s, when these two researchers, Rick and Bowman, they found that Galapagos tortoises, they enhanced germination of this Galapagos tomato, which is only found in the Galapagos archipelago, from 1% without dispersal by these giant tortoises to over 80% germination success. And so this kind of this provided some insight into just how important this interaction could be for plant species that they occupy the same habitat with turtles and tortoises. And to kind of echo this message that seed dispersal by turtles and tortoises is this increasingly hot topic, back in 2020, which wasn't that long ago, Wilfredo Falcón and collaborators, they found that seed dispersal by turtles and tortoises is a worldwide phenomenon. You could find it on every continent except for Antarctica, because there's no turtles and tortoises there. But basically this interaction worldwide encompasses nearly 600 different plant species from 121 different plant families. And one of the things that they did in this review was they looked at the outcomes of seed dispersal by turtles and tortoises. And what they found is that very often this interaction tends to be positive. So to kind of give you guys one case study of how important seed dispersal by turtles and tortoises can be for plants, in 2011, there was this paper published by Griffiths that involved introducing these giant tortoises called the Aldabra giant tortoise. And they rewilded, which means moving a species from where it's not native, basically taking a species and putting it somewhere else that is outside of its native range with the goal of reestablishing some process. And so basically these Aldabra giant tortoises, they were moved into some island where you had this fruiting plant that its main seed disperser had previously gone extinct, and its main seed disperser was another giant tortoise. So basically what these researchers did was they got these Aldabra giant tortoises and they brought them to this island. And right here, you can see some of the results from the study. And first, I just want you guys to focus down here. If you guys can see my cursor, on the bottom right corner, there's this map of that island, and you can see these black dots all represent the adult trees of the species. But the interesting thing is that these researchers, they went out and they surveyed the habitat after having, introduced these Aldabra giant tortoises, and what they found was that there were tortoise dispersed seedlings in all of these sites where it's outside of the canopy of the adult trees. So basically, you had these tortoises moving the seeds away from the parents and kind of helping to spread out these plants. Not only that, but they were also enhancing the overall germination success of the species. And so you can see here, there were two treatments. One of them was planting the seeds inside of the fruit to kind of to mimic, without a seed disperser, would these seeds germinate inside of the whole fruit, and then comparing that to seeds that passed through these giant tortoises. And so you could see that as time went on, there was this substantial difference in seed germination success. And so to kind of bring it back home to South Florida, as some of you know, the pine rockland ecosystem, it's found exclusively here in South Florida and in the Bahamas as well. It's a globally imperiled ecosystem. This is what it looks like here on the right. And this ecosystem needs fire every 2 to 5 years, every 2 to 7 years to maintain high quality habitat. And the highest plant diversity tends to be within fire return intervals of once every 10 years. It's also the most plant diverse South Florida habitat, with over 430 plant species. Many of them can only be found here in Florida. And it has plants from throughout North America, the Caribbean, the New World. And there's actually 14 plant species that they're only found in this particular ecosystem. And so one of the things about the pine rocklands is that it's become highly fragmented. A lot of it has been lost due to urbanization for several reasons. But basically, you could see here in this map that what's here shaded in gray, this is what used to be pine rockland habitat. And what's in black is what is remaining of pine rockland habitat. And so my research took place within this circle, which is the Richmond Tract Pine Rocklands, which is where Zoo Miami is located. And so this right here, this is just to kind of show you guys how the ecosystem, this is what it looks like before fire. This is what it looks like after fire. But within about 2 years, it looks just like that. So this community really requires fire in order for it to produce, these beautiful plants and to really maintain this plant diversity of hundreds of different plant species. And so the pine rockland ecosystem, it also harbored tons of different species of animals, specifically large-bodied predators like the Florida panther, the black bear, and there were also several species of animals that they're known to be seed dispersers elsewhere. For example, white-tailed deer, you have turkey, as well as quail. And so here in South Florida, many of these species, they've been extirpated, meaning that you can no longer find them here in Miami-Dade County. Some of them you can't even find it in Monroe County. And so this ecosystem, it used to harbor several species of plants and animals. And nowadays, these remaining pine rocklands, the communities, they mainly have, for predators, you could say coyotes. Raccoons would be considered like mesopredators, like they're kind of predators, but not really. Cottontail rabbits and gopher tortoises and box turtles. And so even though this ecosystem has lost several species of animals, some of these species could still maintain certain processes within the environment, like seed dispersal. And so like you guys already know, this talk will be about gopher tortoises and box turtles. And so sorry for this very long-winded introduction, but I just think it's important to give you guys some context. But to kind of zoom into Locustberry, we all know Locustberry is one of the most beautiful plants. It has these gorgeous flowers. They're pink and white and reddish, and it's found throughout the Caribbean. And it's actually the only member of its taxonomic family that's native to the state of Florida. And so this is a very unique plant species that yeah, I mean, it's found here in the pine rockland ecosystem. And so this right here, I saw that Joe MDO from iNaturalist is here. You guys are going to see iNaturalist is such a great tool for research, but just to kind of highlight the distribution of Locustberry and where it's been documented through iNaturalist, You can see that it's found throughout the Caribbean, but several observations have been made in the Florida Keys, where Hong's research was, and then in Miami-Dade County, where my research was. So I ran through this presentation beforehand with Hong, and since Hong is the expert on pollination of locustberry, I think she should jump in just to kind of cover all the bases. So Hong, if you want to jump in, I can mute myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot we agreed to that. Anyway, so the locustberry has this very peculiar flowers. Actually, it produce oil, has oil gland on the flower where the nectar is supposed to be. And so it do not actually offer nectar. And the bees who come to collect those oils are there's only one native bees that will do that, which is the centris errands, and look like a little flying teddy bear. So very fuzzy looking, and actually when it in fly, the movement is actually quite gracious. I mean, if you can compare that with the this guy over here, the centris nitida, which is introduced bee in the same genus, which will nowadays when you go observe locustberry, you could potentially see both of them or one of the other. But our native bee is this the brown color and fuzzy looking centris errands. So this is this pollination relationship is very specialized, and I will call it a one-to-one relationship. So the locustberry rely on the bee, centris bee, for pollination, and that's the only bee that can do the pollination service. And the bee actually relies on the oil collected from the flower to make it to feed the larvae. So it's a very tight and dependent mutualism. They depend on each other. So this is what I want to relate.
Thank you, Hong. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and so to kind of tie this to seed dispersal. So on one hand, you have this very specialized mutualism of pollination by these centris bees for locustberry, but then you have these two species of seed dispersers, the Florida box turtle and the gopher tortoise, that they're considered to be generalists. They're not tied down to any one particular resource, but this is just a very cool kind of system to study mutualisms. And so once these flowers become pollinated, they end up producing these fleshy fruits known as drupes because they only have one seed. And so several species of animals consume them, but the focus of this talk is gopher tortoises and box turtles. So I'll jump right into the tortoises. So gopher tortoises, they're, if you guys aren't familiar with them, they're considered ecosystem engineers. They create these burrows that support hundreds of species of animals. But what's not really known about them by most people is that they feed on over 1,000 different species of plants throughout their range. And so gopher tortoises, while they've been studied for their role in modifying habitat and providing habitat for other species of animals, it hasn't been until recently that there's been more research into their interactions with the plant communities that surround them. So for example, previous research has found that they actually enhance seed germination for cocoa plum, which is here on the top left, also for prickly pear cactus, which is right here on the top right, and the coastal ground cherry. This one right here, it's not the exact same species, but it's in the same genus, but basically the fruit looks just like this, and they're all fleshy fruited plants. And the tortoises enhance germination for all three of them. And in my previous research as an undergraduate student, I found that gopher tortoises disperse seeds of more than 30 different plant species within the pine rockland ecosystem. But one thing I noticed was that locustberry never occurred in their scats. And the reason I came to find out why was because I wasn't sampling over the summer months, which is when locustberry tends to produce fruits. And so through my research project, and specifically through my graduate research, which is what I've been doing for the past couple of years now. I sought out to answer the research question of do gopher tortoises disperse seeds of different plants throughout the year? Also, my hypothesis was that gopher tortoises, they eat seeds of fleshy fruits, but that's only really when they become available, because vegetation like grasses and legumes, they tend to be present throughout the habitat year round. But fleshy fruited plants, depending on the species, they could only be basically available to the tortoises in certain windows throughout the year. And so to really address this question, kind of my methods were collecting scats from 15 wild gopher tortoises from Zumani's Pine Rocklands from May 2021 until October 2022, which is this month. So by the end of this month, then I would have finished collecting all of the fecal samples for my graduate research. And basically what I've been doing with the help of Alyssa Herrera and Lydia Cooney has been dissecting scats and then extracting seeds and then identifying those seeds down to the lowest taxonomic unit. And so once those seeds have been recovered, then basically we'll count the seeds and then visually estimate how much each species comprised of all of the seeds present in the sample by volume. This sounds kind of convoluted, but it'll make sense right away. But kind of separately, what I ended up doing was using iNaturalist. I used different observations for Locustberry to see when the plant was producing buds and flowers and then subsequently fruits, with the goal of looking for relationships between the presence of Locustberry fruits on iNaturalist and then the appearance of Locustberry seeds in the tortoise scats. And so my methods for doing this work on iNaturalist involved taking observations from Broward, Miami-Dade, and Monroe County. And Hong, she had pointed out that Locustberry doesn't natively occur north of Miami-Dade County. So that's something that I just kind of want to like warn you guys about. But there were very few observations from Broward County, so I'm pretty confident that it won't change the results. But yeah, basically the rationale for using those observations was because they all fall within the USDA hardiness zone 10B, which means that there's similar climatic conditions. And so basically for each one of these observations, what I did was I would go onto iNaturalist, and if you guys have ever used the webpage, you guys will be familiar with this. And then I'll narrow it down based on the geographic region. And one by one, I went through nearly 480 observations of Locustberry, and I looked through all of the pictures to see whether or not if they were budding, flowering, or fruiting. And then one issue that I came across was that the peak in fruiting from iNaturalist doesn't represent the availability of ripe fruits for the tortoises. So what I had to do then was separately, I had to go back and then look at the images of fruiting observations and then make a note of how many of those observations contained ripe fruits within them. So basically, this is what a particular observation would look like. So I'd go check out this observation, click on the image, and then down here was this annotations. Here in this particular image, there was evidence of flower budding, flowering, and fruiting. And so basically, I'll do that for every single observation that I could find. And basically, this is what it resulted in. So this is the reproductive phenology of Locustberry. So this is the fruiting and the flowering and budding behavior throughout the whole year using observations from iNaturalist. And so what you can see is that there's budding and flowering starting in January, and there's even some fruiting. But if you notice, the ripening of fruits doesn't really happen until May, and then it keeps on through August, but it doesn't peak until more or less June, July, August. That's where there's the three greatest, I guess, times of fruit ripeness. But one thing that you will notice is that there's no fruiting between September through November, and there's no observations for Locustberry in December. So for those citizen scientists out there, if you can take pictures of Locustberry in December, that would be awesome data to keep on collecting on iNaturalist. But yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, there's ripe fruits present in June, July, and August, and fruiting really starts around March, and then it ends around August, and then definitely in September. And so This is to kind of show you guys what the scat dissections look like. So basically, so far, we've been able to dissect 141 tortoise poop samples, and only 6 of these samples contain locustberry seeds. And something else to mention is that all 6 of them came from samples collected in June and in July, and they came from 3 different tortoises. 2 of them were males, and then 1 of them was a female. And each male tortoise only dispersed 1 seed, but this female tortoise, Miss 42, she dispersed a total of 560 locustberry seeds. And just to kind of illustrate how much this one tortoise, Miss 42, how much she loves locustberry, in one poop sample, she actually she passed 354 seeds. So this right here on the bottom right shows all of those seeds from this one female tortoise. And I just did some very simple descriptive statistics, and on average, this female tortoise dispersed 140 seeds per poop where she had locustberry present. And so to kind of show you guys the scat data with the iNaturalist fruiting phenology data, this is what it looks like. And so you could see that when fruiting peaks on the iNaturalist data right here in red and in yellow, you could see that that's when you start seeing locustberry present in the tortoise scats. And so these black bars represent the total number of seeds dispersed each month. And then these smaller gray bars are the average number of seeds dispersed per poop. So in July, you can see that there's a lot more seeds dispersed in total, and there's also more seeds dispersed per poop. However, something that I did notice was that more scat samples had locustberry in June than in July. And so the reason why I think that this is happening and why you have more seeds in July rather than in June is because the tortoises are kind of in this like search mode in June and encountering more locustberry, but there's not a lot of seeds present, or I guess fleshy fruits present on the ground. But once these fruits kind of ripen and then fall down to the ground, then there's just this massive pulse of locustberry fruits. And then that's why you have Miss 42 dispersing 350 locustberry seeds in one poop. And so just to kind of summarize this portion on gopher tortoises and dispersing locustberry, and to kind of let you guys know about how important gopher tortoises are for seed dispersal, counting all of the seeds, all of the species so far, these gopher tortoises, they've dispersed over 11,000 individual seeds from 60 different plant species in the pine rocklands. And when locustberry seeds are present in the tortoise scats, they actually comprise the majority of the seeds in the scat sample by volume. And so this is done by looking at basically looking at all of the seeds. If I could just show you guys here real quick, using this gridded paper in the back, then what I would do is compare the presence of locustberry seeds with smaller grass seeds, and then say, okay, for example, in this sample, this comprised well over 90% of all of the seeds by volume. And so not only that, but locustberry and other fleshy fruits tend to be a really highly valued food item for the gopher tortoise. You can see that as the summer and early fall months kind of come around, the tortoise's diet tends to shift to becoming more frugivorous, and they really like to eat locustberry, also saw palmetto, which is this that's in purple, and then sable palm, which is in blue, and then silver palm, which is this white one right here. And so you can see that this is throughout the course of the year, and then the percent that these food items comprise of their diet. And so you can see that in peak fruiting in September, more than 50% of their scats are comprised of fleshy fruits. And so the next step in this line of research would be performing seed germination experiments on gut pass seeds by gopher tortoises to see how the tortoises are affecting germination. And so this is a pretty good way to then segue into Hong's talk, because that's exactly what Hong did through her work with the box turtles. And so before doing that, I just want to acknowledge some collaborators and funding institutions, Dr. Stephen Whitfield, Alyssa Herrera, Lydia Cooney, Eric Gomez-Gonzalez, and Jennifer Viate, and my funding sources, and those are the research permits. But those are literature cited, and then all right, Hong, you can take it away.
Thank you. So yeah, so as Adrian mentioned that the pine rockland also occur in the Florida Keys, and so this is a work that I did when I was a graduate student. So now I'm a professor at Florida International University, and I'm really happy to have Adrian, who's picking up this interest in the turtles and continue this line of work, but with different species. So I just want to share with you what I found in the Florida Keys, pine rockland, and what the box turtle can do for the species found in the Florida Keys. So on the Big Pine Key, where the most of the pine rockland is found in the Keys, there are about 26% of this plant species actually produce fleshy fruit, which means that they all have this potential to be dispersed by animal species which likes fleshy fruit. And so this is just a little bit of background. And by the way, this is my father. When I was doing my dissertation, my parents came over from China to visit me, and then also, so he's actually next to Locustberry plant and with fruit on. And then the picture on the upper right side is a thatch palm that is another species that are very commonly seen that are produce fleshy fruit, but it's a white fruit. And of course, the box turtle cannot climb. And so as Adrian already indicated, that normally those fruit, the box turtle will eat them when the fruit drop onto the ground. And actually what I observed when I was in the Keys, that birds also come to consume those seeds, but so the seeds are not exclusively dispersed by the box turtle, but the box turtle will get to them when the fruits drop, and the birds can get to them earlier while they're still on the plant. Next slide, please. So my objective at that time is just to ask this question, whether box turtle is a good seed disperser for those plants, or which ones. Next. So this is question number one. What plant species, if any, use box turtle to disperse their seeds? And so this is the process. We'll catch a box turtle in the pine rockland and bring them into the lab. This research is done in the Kedia Wildlife Refuge, and we have a facility over on Big Pine Key. And then to my amazement, what happened if you put a turtle in a bucket with some water, the turtle would just poop. And so that's how we collect the feces. Pretty much it somehow just want to empty its bowel, and so that's how this research was done. And then, as Adrian also said, that then that's when you can sort out those poops material and find out what kind of seeds are in there, and to what proportion. And then we put in some of the seeds actually used for germination trial. Actually, we try to germinate all the seeds that we found from the turtle poops, and some of them do germinate, some don't. And then if we have enough of certain type of seeds, which I will talk about in the next few slides, then we can start actually doing well-designed experiment to quantify how good of this dispersal service is. So next slide, please. So here's a table that's showing it's not all 13 species, but the main one that we found that the seeds are germinable, which means they are viable after they pass through the box turtle's guts. And so on the top, you can see that byrsonima lucida is on the top of the list because it actually consumed a lot of the seeds, and the species that only in the yellow color are all the ones that we found that are being consumed in large quantity by the box turtle, and which allow us to actually go on to do elaborate experiments to understand whether actually passage through the guts of the box turtle enhance the germination. So that was the next question. Next slide, please. So yeah, so this is ecologists want to know, okay, so dispersal by animals, one of the advantage you have is that it helps you to move away from your parents. And why do you want to do that? Because your parents has a lot of, could be, herbivores and disease. And so by going away from, going some distance from the parent plant, your survival is enhanced. And so that's one advantage. And another advantage sometimes is that the germination is actually enhanced, but it's not always the case. So we want to see whether that is the case for these for the keys plants. Next, please. So here we have the seeds, collected from the turtle feces. Those are the treatments, the germination experiment treatment. So we have seeds from the turtle feces, and then fresh seeds that we collect from the plant directly, and some of them we remove the pulp. This is to mimic whether maybe the seeds can germinate better only just because the pulp is being removed, or just to determine the mechanism why the germination, if you see difference, maybe whether that difference is due to the removal of the pulp. So this are the 3 treatments that we have with fresh fruit, with pulp removed and some are not removed. So those are the 3 top species that we tried on, because we have a lot of plants, see a lot of seeds coming out from the box turtle. And those 3 species are also very common commonly found in the pine rocklands on Big Pine. So those the top 2 are palm species, and the last one, the locustberry, as you know, is locustberry. So now it's not a palm. So I will actually do not talk about the statistical analysis. So next slide, please. So this is what we found. And first of all, I look at the germination percentage. And so the first group is the thatch palm, Thrinax mauricii. And so the different treatments are color coded. The blue is the turtle feces. The green is the fresh seeds with the pulp removed, so it's without pulp on, and the purple is a control, which means the fresh seeds with the pulp intact. And as you can see that there is a slightly difference between among the treatments, but those differences are not statistically different. So they're not different enough to say they're significant. That's all what it means. And then the second group is from the Serenoa repens. And this is the one that you can see that the blue column, which is the one that passed through the turtle feces, actually had a significant enhanced germination percentage. So here is the advantage of passing through the turtle that make the germination better by having more of the seeds germinate. And then the last 2 columns are from byrsonima lucida. But I was kind of, when I was doing the experiment the first time in 1999, I did not have include the control, the fresh fruit with the pulp on. So I only have feces, treated seeds and fresh seeds with the pulp removed. And as you can see that actually in this case, in the Locustberry case, the box turtle actually, the treatment passing through the guts of the box turtle reduce the seed germination percentage, which means that passing through the box turtle guts probably kill some of the seeds. So this is maybe expense for the species to endure, to enjoy, to getting away, the ability to get away from the parent plant. So it's being dispersed, so that's sometimes it has a little bit of cost that way. Next, please. So I don't want to go over too much, but I want to explain this slide a little bit. It's similar to the previous slide, where at the end you can see the ultimate differences in the germination percentage, but it actually give you the speed of the germination. And so the lines on the top is the one that's germinate faster, and the line on the blue line is germinated slower. So it gives you a sense not only how many seeds or what's the percentage seeds germinate, but also tells you how fast they germinate. And this matters actually in nature, because when there's a competition, if you germinate earlier, you have advantage. You can grow faster, grab the nutrient available to you faster. And so that is another parameter that actually we are looking at. And so as you can see that for this particular species, which is the Thrinax mauritii, the palm, passing through the feces actually did not enhance the germination speed in this case. Next slide, please. But for Cyanella repens, on the other hand, you can see the advantage that have a box turtle as your dispersal agent, because once you pass through those seeds that pass through the guts of the box turtle, you germinate faster, and there's more of them germinate. So Cyanella repens, the salt palmetto, is the one that actually really likes a benefit from box turtle dispersal service. So now the Locustberry, again, actually passing through the guts actually give you a little bit of advantage at the beginning, but then it kind of level out, by this is a number of weeks. So there are fewer seeds, as I explained earlier, in percentage germinated if the turtle actually eat you and pass it through the. And as I interpret it, the passing through the guts sometimes has a cost to the plant species. So this is the case where it happened on the byrsonima lucida. So I'm actually quite interested to find out whether gopher tortoises actually did the same thing, whether it actually have a discount, like maybe they suffer in terms of the mortality. In order to get to have the benefit of disperse away from parents. Next slide. So this is the conclusion. So we know that the box turtle disperses at least 9 species. Actually, I at the beginning I say there's I think 13 or 14 species that has seeds germinate. So this may be referring to the fleshy fruit. There could be some grass species that also the box turtle will eat and maybe disperse as well. Those are not included in this. But for the keys, those that accounting for about 27% of the fleshy fruit producing species are actually being serviced by the box turtle. So box turtle is very important species for the pine rockland, at least in the Florida Keys. And again, so Ceanoa repens, that's the salt palmetto, actually is the one that benefit the most from in terms of how many seeds can germinate, and also the germination speed. But byrsonima lucida, the locustberry, and the sets palm, the Thrynex mauricii, they did have their germination percentage declined after they pass through the guts. Okay. Yeah, I think I pretty much say all that already. So here is several people, including Dr. Suzanne Copter, that provided she was my advisor at the time and gave me a research assistantship, which allowed me to stay in the Florida Keys on Big Pine Key to do all this very fun stuff. So thank you. That's all my presentation.
Thank you, guys. And if you guys have any questions, I see that there's a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll address them. But if you guys want to download either Dr. Liu or my previous research on seed dispersal by box turtles and gopher tortoises, these are the QR codes. So you could pull out your phone and scan it and download it if you guys are interested in it. And this is our contact information and my Twitter account. So I saw that there was a question on how quickly do gopher tortoises digest their food. So that's a great question. There was actually a study published in 1987 that they looked at the gut transit time of gopher tortoises, but they didn't use fleshy fruited plants. They used these leaves of this legume species, but basically they found that on average it was about 13 days. However, this past summer, there was this undergraduate student that I think he's actually here. His name's Eric Gomez Gonzalez. For his research project, he actually fed these safe plastic beads that have been used in seed dispersal research before to see how long it takes for gopher tortoises to pass these beads in order to estimate like gut transit times. And basically what he found through his work was that it took between 2 and 3 weeks. I think it was about 17 or 18 days on average for the gopher tortoises to pass these beads. And one interesting thing to note is that the size of the beads didn't matter. And so we ended up including beads of different sizes within the range of seeds from their habitat. And that had no effect on how long it took them to pass those beads. I see. Does a gopher tortoise shift toward frugivory in the summer coincide with mating and reproduction? Yeah, Jen, that's a great question. And actually, so we believe that the tortoises are mating in the late spring, early summer months, and then again in the early fall months. And it's interesting because that does happen to coincide with the presence of fleshy fruits in their diet. The thing though is that like it becomes pretty difficult to tease apart from the fruiting phenology of the plants, because since everything is happening at the same time, that would require a much more closely like coordinated study where like maybe presenting fleshy fruits to the tortoises when they're not reproducing to see whether or not if that affects it. But that's definitely something that I've thought about before. But yeah, like it's something fascinating to think about it. Hong, there's a question by Joseph. Yeah, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, was the bucket and water poop method is known trick? Yes, it was a known trick. Actually, one of my collaborators is a herpetologist, and he knows all this kind of tricks.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. I see that Jen also she says, did Miss 42 happen to live near a bunch of big locust berries, whereas other tortoises in your study did not? Or does it seem rather it was really a personal preference of hers? That's a fantastic question. So Miss 42, she lives in South Tortoise Town. So we have 3 different tortoise towns. So South and West Tortoise Town, they're much better managed, and they have a lot less exotic species, and they're more better maintained through prescribed burning, like how I mentioned earlier. But yeah, there is quite a few locustberry in West and South Tortoise Town. But the interesting thing is that Mr. 491, which is one of the other tortoises. So if you guys remember, there were 3 tortoises, 491, 454, and Miss 42. 2 of those tortoises are from South Tortoise Town. And she just really seemed to like it, because even though this other male, like this male tortoise, lives with her in like the same area, he only ate 1 locustberry fruit. So to kind of to address this question of personal preference, this kind of ties into my dissertation, because through my research, what I'm trying to do is look at whether or not if each individual tortoise has different food items that they prefer, and seeing whether or not if that changes through time and across individuals of different sexes and ages and things like that. But yeah, to me, it does seem like Miss 42 does seem to prefer locustberry, because we have some other female tortoises that are more or less the same size in West Tortoise Town, where there is locustberry, but they tend to eat more saw palmetto and sable palm and things like that. So these little tortoises have their own little personalities and preferences. But yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. That's for all the questions.
Does anyone want to ask a question directly of our speakers? You can unmute yourself and feel free. I had one other, I'm very full of questions tonight. I had one other question. Did you ever find that the tortoises ate trash or anything like that?
So that is a great question. And you guys probably won't believe me when I say this, but there was one male tortoise. He actually ate a rabies vaccine packet. And well, actually not one. So he ended up eating 2 rabies vaccine packets. And so when I found that poop sample from him, I reached out to the Zoo Miami veterinary staff. They checked him out, and they said no, like he should be okay. I mean, like behaviorally, he was fine. He wasn't sick or anything. But the interesting thing is that these vaccine packets, they're kind of like those little ketchup packets that you'll get at whatever fast food place. But what they do is that they have the anti-rabies medication inside of these packets, and they cover it in fish oil. And so this fish oil, what I think happens is that this male tortoise smelled it out and walked up to this fish oil covered packet and didn't only eat one, but then proceeded to eat a second one. Something interesting too is that juvenile gopher tortoises, we've already observed them multiple times with mammal fur and even bones and eggshells in their scats. And we think that that might be because there's some kind of trace minerals or nutrients present in those food items that help them grow. It might be more protein or whatever it might be. That would require further research, but it's interesting too because those samples coincide with the summer months, which is typically the growing season for these juvenile gopher tortoises. So there's tons of crazy things that they're eating, and yeah, but
okay. Sorry, I have to leave. So thank you for the invitation, and it's such a pleasure to give a talk to this, the Connect to Protect network. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Hong.
I have a question. I don't know whether you can hear me. Nancy Leslie. I
Yes.
unmuted.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, we live in the middle of Coral Gables and back up to Riviera Golf Course, and there is a lake pond in the middle of the golf course where we are. And every now and then we have a box turtle, and we have had gopher turtles that come into our yard, and we don't live very far from Bird Road. So I know if they get out to Bird Road, they're going to be run over. Should we be moving those turtles or gopher tortoises away from where we
Yeah.
are, our backyard?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And so you're actually not supposed to move gopher tortoises, but what you can do is you could call Zoo Miami, and my one of my committee members and a longtime mentor of mine, Dr. Stephen Whitfield, he actually works closely with FWC to relocate gopher tortoises that they've been displaced. As for the box turtles, I'm not really sure how to advise you on that, but box turtles, they do tend to be more common and more adaptable, I would say. But gopher tortoises, if they're found in golf courses and things like that, most likely it's because somebody illegally moved them over there. So whenever you do observe one of them, be sure to either call Zoo Miami or FWC. But if you want, I could send you an email with my contact information as well as Dr. Stephen Whitfield's. And yeah, if you ever see a gopher tortoise, we would love to know. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's the
I see-
estimated population
Yeah.
in the Richmond Pine Rocklands?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so right now we know of, I would say, between 15 to 20 gopher tortoises. So that's counting adults and juveniles. But the thing is that it's very difficult to get a grasp on how many gopher tortoises there are out there, because the quality of the habitat varies so much. There's certain areas that they're highly invaded with exotics, but also the juveniles can be very hard to catch as well. In other parts of the range of the gopher tortoise, for example, in sandhill and scrub habitat, it's much more easy to find gopher tortoise nests. But in the pine rocklands, since it's very rocky, it's very difficult to pinpoint where those nests are. So it's been very difficult for us to track juveniles. But in the past year, we found several juvenile gopher tortoises that were first marked about 2 or 3 years ago. So there is evidence of reproduction and recruitment of these gopher tortoises. Also, we found some evidence of double clutching in female tortoises that hasn't been found elsewhere in their range. And so we think that that has to do with a combination of the climate down here compared to elsewhere in the range. Also, maybe food quality, but we are seeing successful reproduction in the tortoises.
Thank you.
Last call, any questions for Adrian?
I have a question about box turtles. So I remember growing up, I'd always hear my dad talk about how there used to be box turtles in the neighborhood, which was in Westchester. So I'm talking about between like around 87th Avenue and Coral Way. And, you know, I just took what he said and I was like, okay, there used to be box turtles here. But, you know, now I just can't imagine there being box turtles anywhere around, you know, suburban Miami. But I mean, this is a question for you, Adrian, or anyone else, if you guys remember ever seeing box turtles and, you know, not so much anymore, because that's kind of, it fascinated me.
Yeah, I mean, so in the Richmond tract, we have found box turtles, and those box turtles, we don't think that that they were moved by people, because there's just so much pine rockland habitat there. But what we have noticed is that some turtles have been observed inside of the actual like core habitat like of the pine rocklands, but there's actually this biosecurity moat surrounding Zoo Miami, and those tend to be seasonally flooded, and we tend to find a load of box turtles down in there. Because they seem to like that kind of transition between aquatic and terrestrial. But besides that, personally, I haven't seen any in some of the more urban areas of Miami-Dade County.
Well, that Pine Rockland down there is where I grew up, and you know, things that you used to be able to see, you know, down there, you know, back before the zoo was there. I don't think they're nearly as common anymore, but I wish I knew more about this stuff back then when I was a kid riding my bike through the old blimp days, but you know, oh well.
Thank you both.
Adrian,
Thank you, guys.